stuff you like, and we're not really going to bother with a non-spoilery summary of The Last Jedi Beyond. I loved it and I have all the feelings, let me share them with you. The Last Jedi was always going to be a tricky one because it is our dark middle chapter, like The Empire Strikes Back, and it could have gone a bit Rogue One. Not that Rogue One is bad, it's just not a Star Wars film TM. It's a film which takes place in a galaxy far, far away, but it's really, really depressing. Making sure that The Last Jedi wasn't that dark middle chapter, which is more depressing than Rogue One, is why I think they went so heavy with the slapstick. To reassure you that yes, there is still fun in the universe, even when things are dark. And yes, space fascists are every bit as ridiculous as you think they are. General Hux. Hux is basically the sideshow Bob of The Last Jedi, and I kind of love it. There is, to be fair, so much stuff in this film. It is the Avengers Age of Ultron of Star Wars films. But I am a sucker for these characters, and so every minute spent with them is precious to me. Total sucker. Regardless of how many plot lines they have to cram in there, which, to be fair, was probably too many. But I still don't care. The Last Jedi is about failure. I mean, it's very explicitly about failure because Yoda, of all people, turns up at the end to tell Luke that the greatest teacher failure is. So much failing and being disappointed. It's also about good and about balance and redemption and coming back from failure, but, you know, dark middle chapter. Rose and Finn, whose subplot I found the least personally compelling, but you know, fine, fail at their Star Destroyer flummoxing plan. They succeed at some of the smaller things, but ultimately the thing they set out to do just doesn't happen. Though subsequently Finn does succeed at defeating Phasma, but without really the build-up that I would have necessarily expected. Then again, if everything in this movie had the build-up which I would have liked, it would have been about 6 hours long. And while Rose succeeds at saving Finn's life, Finn fails at dying heroically. And then they have a supremely awkward nerd kiss at the end. I'm not really sure how I feel about the supremely awkward nerd kiss. I might have more of an opinion after I watch the movie again. That being said, the bit where Finn covers Rose with a blanket at the end is supremely adorable. Finn fails to live up to Rose's expectations as a great resistance war hero, but ultimately that is a good thing because he's not just a great resistance war hero, he's a human person with human feelings. The thing I like best about this subplot is how it goes right for your heartstrings by saying that you need to fight for the things that you love and not against the things that you hate, lest you just become a sour old bitter Hatey McHateface who just wants to burn everything down. Looking at you, Kylo. Also you, Luke. But we'll get to that. Moving on. Poe's failures in The Last Jedi are sometimes successes which are bought too dearly, like when they destroy the big ship but at the cost of all of their bombers. Sometimes they're things he thinks he should get but doesn't. Everyone welcome our new leader, Vice Admiral Holdo! And he also approves of the plan that Finn and Rose have, which ultimately fails, meaning that the ships that were successfully sneaking away start to get destroyed, to the point that the entire resistance by the end of the film can fit on the Millennium Falcon. You messed up big time, dude, and now you're gonna learn. And the reason that you have to learn is that you have to do this now. Leia is hard on him because she doesn't just need him to be the dude who blasts things in his X-Wing, she needs him to be the future her. And so we have Poe trying to figure out how to grow into the kind of hero who can send other heroes out to die without him, because one day that's probably who he's gonna have to be. And he fails a lot, but we have hope in the end. And besides, anyone who scritches his droid's casing like it's a fuzzy puppy is okay in my book. Third and final major subplot is Luke and Rey and Kylo and Rey's epic force timing sessions. And just about everything about Kylo and Rey makes me very happy because man, that guy is such a doofus. And you want so hard for him to stop being a doofus, but nope, we don't get there, and we might never get there. Kylo Ren never being redeemed is a legitimate possibility at this point, and the suspense is delicious. As was the suspense when Projecto Luke got shot a lot and then brushed some imaginary dirt off his shoulder. Like, I don't know about your audience, but the whole audience in my cinema laughed. Did you notice during their big dramatic fight that Luke didn't leave footprints? I did, and I thought it might have been that whole kind of, when you can walk on rice paper without leaving a mark, grasshopper, then you are a true Jedi master. Or maybe it was about how Kylo Ren just like stomps into places and leaves his mark on them, whereas Luke is more subtle. But no, he's just plain not there. Skywalker out. You can extrapolate aspects of Return of the Jedi Luke to get us to Luke in The Last Jedi. So Luke's characterization is very uncomfortable to me, but it doesn't feel like character assassination. I am honestly really impressed by that. Shiny, happy, always see the good in people Luke is crushed under the weight of his own failure. But hope springs eternal and he comes back to teach his nephew one last lesson about life. If you strike me down in anger, I will always be with you. just like your father. Yes, it's hard watching Luke as a bitter old man, especially because he's lost all hope, but he gets it back. Rey's attempts to redeem Ben Solo don't pan out, at least not this time around. But she doesn't fail with Luke, and I have a lot of feelings about that too. He hasn't fallen into darkness, but he's fallen into despair, which is almost worse. But here Luke is redeemed, and he can't give Ben everything he needs, but he can give him the closure of knowing that his master was wrong and his uncle is sorry. That redemption is sparked by Rey, who doesn't know anything about the Jedi or light or dark or balance or whatever, but she believes in good and in doing good, regardless of where that takes you. Which is how she winds up in a deep dark hole looking for answers, though gets no answers at all. Unless that really is Kylo Ren's shadow that we're supposed to be seeing. But after she gets no answer, she confides in Ben, who is the only Force sensitive around who is actually willing to talk to her. Both of them are so desperately lonely at this point that it's quite heart-wrenching. Can you see my surroundings? I can't see yours. All I see is you. Ultimately, Rey fails in a lot of the things that she set out to do, but not all of them. She tries so hard to save Ben because that is what Luke would have done, will do, should do. And that is a good and worthy instinct, but while Kylo Ren might know himself for a monster, he hasn't figured out how not to be one yet. All of the goodwill in the world isn't going to do it. Some things you just have to work out on your own. Finn manages to work it out on his first mission for the First Order. Kylo Ren, not so much. What a plonker. And so, like Anakin before him, he grabs for power, because power allows you to control things, and if you have all the power, then you can control everything. Right? Which is, of course, the point that Rey slams the metaphorical door in his face. Even though the mythos of Star Wars is sort of about light and dark and balance in the Force, really it's about good. Join me and we'll make the galaxy in our own image, even though you're no one and I'm a monster, is not an attractive pitch in these circumstances. Oh, and incidentally, you're no one, but not to me, is right up there with, if you don't do what I want, I'll kill myself, in the big red flags book of abuser phrases. You wazzock. Ben and Rey are my favourite things in this movie. I could just sit and watch Rey and Kylo Ren emote at each other all day and marvel. And probably because of this dynamic, which I like so much, my favourite scene is the one where Rey and Kylo Ren take on the Praetorian Guard in Snoke's throne room. It's so good and you feel hope rising and just... no. Ben Solo, you absolute grade A space numpty. Something that interested me about the film was how it took the established light side and dark side and balance, blah blah blah, and then just kind of went, nah, sort of? Because that theme of balance applies very well with Kylo Ren and Rey, when they are communicating with each other via Force time, or, you know, Force bond, whatever it's actually called. Once we get past the initial recriminations, then being together helps them both kind of take it down a notch. Especially Kylo Ren, Star Wars drama llama extraordinaire. But there's always been a kind of inconsistency with the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force, but they don't actually represent good and evil, necessarily. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they just don't. I mean, Rey taps into the Force like whoa, but she fails to have her questions answered, and so she reaches immediately for the dark because it might be able to help. And Luke freaks out because reaching for the dark is what got Kylo Ren into trouble in the first place, but it's not exactly that, is it? If you have light and dark in balance, then why would you fight for the light? Because you believe it to be good? But then you're holding both of these things to a third standard, one which says that good is better than evil and that light is better than dark. Or perhaps the intention with which you use something makes it good or evil. Man, this is a much bigger discussion. Okay, let's lighten the tone. Kylo Ren whipping off his cloak in suitably dramatic fashion was pure grandma, it's me, Anastasia. Really living up to your namesake there, Ben Solo. Anyway, there were so many other moments that I loved. General Organa saving herself from the vacuum of space. Projection Luke kissing Leia on the forehead. Ow, my feelings. I've seen your daily routine, you're not busy. Yoda setting fire to a tree, and of course, read them, have you? Page turners they are not. Can you put on a cowl or something? Bottom line though, the new movies are doing a bunch of things I explicitly did not want to happen. I didn't want Luke to be an old, cranky, closed off from the Force jerk who failed his students. I didn't want Han and Leia to split up. But you know, I'm really on board with it. I mean, maybe subsequently when I've come down from whee, I will decide that there are some things that I don't like so much. But while they're doing difficult things with the characters, they're not, in my opinion at least, horribly screwing it up. And so while I have many feelings, They're almost all good ones. Final thought though, I really want crackfic where Rey and Kylo's forced time bond kicks in at the most inappropriate but preferably PG-rated moments. Like seriously, Kylo Ren, it's 4 AM, I don't care what you just saw on Space Tumblr, I was asleep. And could you put on a cowl or something? Thanks as always to my patrons who make this show possible and who are probably just as happy as I am that Patreon isn't going ahead with those weird fee structure changes. And I'm off to watch lightsaber videos on YouTube. Until next time, may the Force be with you. And also with you. No, they don't do that.